The crystal champagne flute shattered in my grip, sending shards across the marble floor of our family's grand foyer. Blood trickled down my palm, but I barely noticed the pain. My parents' voices drifted from Father's study, their words piercing me deeper than any broken glass could. The merger with Graham Industries depends on this marriage, Whitney. Trinity will do as she's told, just as she always has. I'm Trinity, and at 25 years old, I was still nothing more than a bargaining chip in my parents' endless game of social chess. Xander, darling, of course she will. My mother's voice dripped with honey. We've raised her to understand her responsibilities. The wedding will proceed as planned. My hand trembled as I pressed a silk napkin against the cut. The wedding they spoke of, my wedding, was news to me. But then again, most decisions about my life were made without my input. Trinity! Mother's sharp call made me jump. What's that awful noise? Come here at once! I quickly kicked the broken glass under a nearby console table and hurried to the study, hiding my bleeding hand behind my back. The heavy double doors opened to reveal my parents in their natural habitat. Father behind his mahogany desk, Mother perched on the leather chaise lounge like a bird of prey. "There you are, darling," Mother said, her perfectly painted lips curving into a practiced smile. "We have wonderful news." Father didn't even look up from his laptop. "You'll be having dinner with Otis Graham tomorrow evening. Wear something appropriate." "Otis Graham?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "The CEO of Graham Industries." "His son, dear," Mother corrected, rising to adjust my collar. "He's only 28, quite handsome and very eligible. The perfect match." I stepped back from her touch. "Match for what exactly?" "Don't be obtuse, Trinity," Father snapped, finally meeting my eyes. "This merger could double our market share. The Grahams are old money, just like us. It's a natural alliance." "Through marriage?" I said flatly. "My marriage." Mother waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, don't be dramatic. This is how things are done in our circle. I met your father through a similar arrangement, and look how well that turned out." I glanced between them, my father, who treated his family like employees, and my mother, who turned manipulation into an art form. Yes, look how well indeed. And if I refuse? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Father's fingers stopped typing. "Refuse?" Mother laughed, but her eyes were steel. "Why would you refuse? This is the opportunity of a lifetime. The Grahams have 3 houses, a yacht, and connections throughout Europe. Otis is quite taken with your photos." "My photos?" Heat rushed to my face. "You've been showing my pictures to strangers?" "Business associates," Father corrected. "And yes, Otis was particularly impressed with your charity gala photographs. He appreciates a woman who understands social obligations." My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably River, my best friend, and the only person who saw me as more than a corporate asset. I longed to answer it, to escape this suffocating room. "I have plans tomorrow evening," I said quietly. "Cancel them." Father's tone left no room for argument. "The restaurant is already booked. 7 p.m. sharp at LeBlanc. Don't disappoint us, Trinity." I turned to leave, but Mother caught my arm. "What happened to your hand, dear?" Blood had seeped through the napkin, leaving crimson spots on the white silk. "I broke a glass." "Well, clean yourself up," she sighed, "and do something about those dark circles under your eyes. We can't have you looking tired when you meet Otis." I fled the study, but not before hearing my father's final words to my mother. "Call the wedding planner. I want everything arranged by next month. The fiscal quarter ends soon, and we need this merger locked down." In my room, I finally checked my phone. River had sent 3 messages. "Hey, you okay?" "Trinity." "Call me ASAP. I have an idea." I sank onto my bed, tears threatening to spill, my whole life reduced to a business transaction, a merger, a deal to be closed. Through blurry eyes, I typed back, "I need help. They're trying to marry me off to a stranger." River's response was immediate. "Pack a bag. Don't let them see you cry." I'm coming to get you tonight. I looked around my luxurious prison, at all the pretty things that had never quite made up for the lack of real love. My hand throbbed, but my heart beat faster with something new. Hope. Or maybe it was fear. Either way, I knew tomorrow's dinner would never happen. I had other plans. Plans that would shatter more than just a champagne flute. The security cameras went dark at exactly 2 a.m. River had promised to handle it, though I never asked how. I crept down the servants' staircase, my heart thundering so loudly I feared it would wake the entire house. One backpack, that's all I allowed myself. Some clothes, essential documents, and the emergency cash I'd been secretly stashing for months. Going somewhere, miss. I froze. Martha, our housekeeper, stood at the bottom of the stairs. In her 30 years of service, she'd been more of a mother to me than Whitney ever was. Martha, The words stuck in my throat. She pressed a small envelope into my hands. Your mother's been planning your wedding all evening. The cake tasting is scheduled for next week. She paused, then pulled me into a tight hug. Be safe, Trinity. Be free. Tears pricked my eyes as I hugged her back. Thank you, I whispered. I never saw you, she said, disappearing into the darkness of the kitchen. My phone vibrated. Cars waiting at the gate. I slipped through the garden, staying in the shadows of the carefully manicured hedges. The iron gates loomed ahead, their security keypads blinking red instead of green. River had done her job well. A black sedan idled just beyond the gate, its engine a soft purr in the night. I squeezed through the gap we'd discovered years ago, a design flaw in the fence that my parents never knew about. Get in, River hissed from the driver's seat. I dove into the passenger side, my hands shaking so badly I could barely close the door. River pulled away smoothly, no squealing tires or dramatic acceleration, just a quiet disappearance into the night. Did anyone see you? She asked, keeping her eyes on the road. Just Martha. She won't tell. Good. River handed me a burner phone. Your regular phone? I pulled it from my pocket and rolled down the window. The expensive device sailed into a drainage ditch. Gone. Smart girl. There's a new ID and bank cards in the glove compartment. Reagan came through. Reagan, I asked, pulling out the envelope. Who's that? Someone who helps people like you. She's expecting us in Seattle. I stared at the driver's license in my hands. Same photo, different name. How did you arrange all this? River's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Let's just say I know what it's like to need an escape route. Reagan helped me once, too. The city lights faded behind us as we hit the highway. I kept expecting police sirens, my father's security team, something. But there was only the hum of tires on asphalt and the soft sound of River humming along to the radio. My phone would be trackable until the battery died, lying in that ditch. By the time they found it, we'd be hundreds of miles away. They'll look for me, I said quietly. Probably. But you're 25, Trinity. Legally, they can't do anything. I opened Martha's envelope. Inside was a letter and a small key. Dear Trinity, it read, this key opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank in Seattle, account number 2247. What's inside might help you start your new life. I've been saving for you since you were a little girl who cried about being forced into pageants. Your parents never knew. Be brave, dear one. Martha. Fresh tears spilled down my cheeks. River reached over and squeezed my hand. You okay? No, I admitted, but I will be. The sun was rising when River's phone chimed. She glanced at it and smiled. Reagan says your room is ready. We'll be there by tonight. What's she like? Tough. Fair. She runs a legitimate business consulting firm, but she has a soft spot for people running from toxic families. She'll help you find work, build a new life. I leaned back in my seat, watching the morning light paint the sky in shades of hope. My parents would be waking up soon. Mother would be furious when she discovered my empty bed. Father would be more concerned about the merger falling apart. River? Yeah? Thank you for everything. She smiled, her eyes still on the road ahead. That's what real family does. My phone would be discovered soon. The police might be called. But I wasn't a missing person. I was a woman choosing her own path for the first time in her life. I pulled out the new driver's license again. Trinity was gone. According to this, I was now Emma Parker, age 25, from Portland, Oregon. Emma, I whispered, trying the name on for size. It felt like freedom. River turned up the radio as we crossed the state line. Welcome to your new life, Emma. Behind us, the sun rose fully, burning away the last shadows of my old life. Ahead lay Seattle, Reagan, and a future that was finally, completely my own. Seattle greeted me with rain and the smell of coffee. After 3 weeks, I was starting to understand why River had chosen this city for my fresh start. The constant drizzle felt like it was washing away my old life, one drop at a time. You're holding the espresso machine wrong again, Reagan called from behind the counter of her cafe. Tamp the grounds firmly, but don't crush them. I readjusted my grip, trying to mirror her movements. The cafe was my cover job, the perfect place to learn how to blend in with regular people while I got my feet under me. The basement of the building housed Reagan's real business, helping people disappear and rebuild. Better, she nodded as I successfully pulled a shot. You're learning fast, Emma. The name still felt strange, but I was getting used to it, just like I was getting used to wearing jeans instead of designer dresses and having coffee stains on my apron instead of perfect manicures. The bell above the door chimed. Morning, boss, River walked in, shaking rain from her umbrella. She'd moved to Seattle 2 weeks after me, claiming a job transfer, but I knew she'd done it to keep an eye on me. Your usual? I asked, already reaching for the oat milk she preferred. Actually, we need to talk. Her serious tone made me pause. Privately. Reagan nodded toward the back office. Take 5, Emma. I'll cover the front. River closed the office door behind us and pulled out her tablet. Your parents made the news. My stomach dropped as she showed me the headline. Cooper Industries announces surprise merger delay. Stocks plummet. They're looking for you, River continued. Private investigators, social media campaigns, the works, they're spinning it as a mental health crisis, claiming you're unstable and need help. I laughed bitterly. Of course they are. Can't admit their perfect daughter just didn't want to be their puppet anymore. There's more. River swiped to another article. The Grahams are threatening to pull out completely. Your father's company is taking a hit. Good, I said, but my voice shook slightly. Despite everything, seeing my father's empire crumble didn't feel as satisfying as I'd imagined. A knock at the door made us both jump. Reagan entered, carrying 3 coffee mugs. Thought you might need these. Also, Martha called. Is she okay? I asked quickly. They didn't fire her, did they? She's fine. Smart woman, convinced your parents she had no idea about your plans. But she says they're getting desperate. Your mother's been drinking more than usual. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, remembering all the times I'd found Mother with her special tea that smelled like vodka. What do they expect me to do? Just come running back? Actually, Reagan sat on the edge of her desk. This might be an opportunity. Martha accessed some files in your father's study. Apparently, the Graham merger isn't just about business. There are some questionable transactions that would be buried in the merger paperwork. Illegal transactions? I asked. Let's just say the SEC would be very interested. Reagan's eyes met mine. Your father's desperate because he needs this merger to cover his tracks. The implications hit me like a wave. All those years of being the perfect daughter, and my father had been breaking the law behind his mahogany desk. I got something else, River added, pulling an envelope from her bag. Remember that safety deposit box Martha told you about? I nodded. I'd been too scared to visit the bank yet, afraid it might somehow lead my parents to me. I had my contact at the bank check it out. It's not just savings, Trinity, it's documentation, years of it. Martha kept records of everything she saw or heard in that house. My hands trembled as I took the envelope. Inside were copies of some of Martha's records. Dates, transactions, overhead conversations, all meticulously noted. Martha wasn't just a housekeeper, Reagan said softly. She was building you a safety net. And maybe now, some leverage. A notification popped up on River's tablet, an email from my mother's lawyer demanding information about my whereabouts. They're not going to stop, I said, standing up, but maybe it's time they learned what it feels like to be powerless. Reagan smiled, but her eyes were serious. Revenge is a dangerous game, Emma. Are you sure you want to play it? I thought about all the years of control, of being paraded around like a prize horse, of having my entire life planned without my consent. I don't want revenge, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. I want justice, and now I have the power to get it. The cafe's morning rush bell rang, calling me back to work, back to my new life of simple pleasures and honest work. But now I had something else too. A way to ensure my parents could never force anyone else to live the life they'd planned for me. Time to get back to work, I said, straightening my apron. Those espresso shots won't pull themselves. But this time, as I returned to the counter, I was smiling. The game had changed, and for once I held all the cards. Happy 6-month freedom anniversary! River placed a cupcake with a single candle in front of me. The tiny flame flickered in the dim light of my small apartment, casting dancing shadows on the walls. You're ridiculous, I laughed, but my heart swelled. These small celebrations meant more than all the elaborate parties my mother had ever thrown. Reagan raised her wine glass. To Emma Parker, my best barista and most successful renovation project. I'm not your project, I protested, but clinked glasses with her anyway. The cheap wine tasted better than any champagne I'd sipped in my father's study. My phone buzzed. A news alert. River reached for it first, her smile fading as she read the screen. What is it? I asked. Cooper Industries stock dropped another 15% today, she read. CEO Xander Cooper announces temporary step back from daily operations due to health concerns. Health concerns? Reagan scoffed. More like stress from trying to cover his tracks. The SEC is sniffing around just like we predicted. I took the phone, staring at my father's photo. He looked older, greyer. The confident smirk I remembered was replaced by tight, worried lines around his mouth. Your mother's been calling Martha daily, River added gently, asking if she's heard anything. Have they figured out you helped me? I asked, suddenly worried. River shook her head. No. I covered my tracks well. Besides, they're too focused on damage control to look closely at anyone else. The cupcake sat untouched, its candle now just a pool of wax. 6 months of freedom, of learning who I was without my parents' constant control. I had a job, an apartment, real friends. But I also had Martha's documents, burning a hole in my dresser drawer. I saw Otis Graham on TV yesterday, Reagan said, refilling our glasses. He's engaged to some socialite from New York. Guess he moved on pretty quick. Good for him, I muttered. At least he had a choice. A knock at the door made us all freeze. No one knew my address except the people in this room. River moved to the window while Reagan positioned herself between me and the door. Who is it? I called, trying to keep my voice steady. Delivery for Emma Parker. I looked at Reagan, who nodded. When I opened the door, a courier handed me a thick manila envelope and left without a word. It's from Martha, I said, recognizing her handwriting. Inside was a USB drive and a letter. Dear Trinity, I read aloud. Your father's been asking questions about the missing files from 2019. He doesn't know I have copies, but he's desperate enough now that he's starting to make mistakes. Yesterday, I overheard him talking about offshore accounts. Be careful. Love, Martha. River plugged the USB into her laptop. Holy shit, she whispered as documents filled the screen. These aren't just questionable transactions. This is full-blown fraud. Look at the dates, Reagan pointed, all leading up to when they tried to force you into that marriage. The Graham merger wasn't just about social climbing. They needed it to hide all of this. My hands shook as I scrolled through years of illegal activities. All those charity galas, all those society parties, funded by fraud and corruption. What do I do with this? I asked. That depends, Reagan said carefully. Do you want to destroy them? Or do you want to make them face consequences? They're already facing consequences, River argued. Look at them. Their perfect world is crumbling without Trinity to prop up their plans. I thought about Martha, still working in that house, watching my parents unravel, about all the other daughters they might try to use if they recovered from this setback. I want them to face real justice, I said finally. Not just social embarrassment or financial setbacks. They need to answer for what they've done. Reagan nodded slowly. I know someone at the SEC. We can arrange an anonymous tip, provide the documentation. But once we do this, there's no going back. Are you ready for that? The candle on my cupcake had completely melted, leaving a small dark pool. Like the darkness I'd escaped 6 months ago. But I wasn't that scared girl anymore. Do it, I said. But first, I need to warn Martha. Get her out before everything explodes. River squeezed my hand. We'll help. That's what real family does, remember? I looked around at my tiny apartment, at my true friends, at the life I'd built from scratch. My parents had taught me that power came from money and control, but real power, I'd learned, came from choosing your own path and standing up for what's right. To justice, I said, raising my glass, and to family, the kind we choose. The night stretched ahead, full of plans and possibilities. Tomorrow the real work would begin. But tonight, surrounded by love and truth, I was finally, completely free. The morning news hit like a thunderbolt. I was pouring coffee at the cafe when every phone in the place buzzed simultaneously with the alert. Cooper Industries was under federal investigation. Emma, Reagan appeared at my elbow. Take a break. Now. In the back office, River was already waiting, her laptop open to a live news feed. My father stood at a podium, cameras flashing as reporters shouted questions. Mother stood beside him, her face a frozen mask of dignity, but I could see the slight tremor in her champagne-manicured hands. The allegations against Cooper Industries are completely unfounded, Father was saying. We will cooperate fully with the investigation and expect to be fully cleared of any wrongdoing. Turn it up, I whispered as a reporter stood. Mr. Cooper, sources say this investigation was triggered by an anonymous whistleblower with extensive documentation. Do you have any comment on the identity of this person? My father's face tightened. We have reason to believe this is a coordinated attack by our competitors, possibly in connection with my daughter's current situation. Your daughter? Another reporter jumped in. Trinity Cooper has been missing for 6 months. Are you suggesting she's involved? My daughter is unwell. Mother stepped forward, her voice cracking perfectly on cue. We're deeply concerned about her mental state and the people who may be manipulating her. Trinity, if you're watching this, please come home. We can help you. I clicked the laptop shut, my hands shaking. They're trying to discredit me before I even come forward. Standard playbook, Reagan nodded. But we planned for this, remember? River's phone buzzed. Martha's clear. She quit this morning, took everything from her house. She's on her way here. Good. I took a deep breath. Then it's time for phase 2. Reagan pulled out a burner phone. My SEC contact is ready. One call and we release everything. The documentation, the offshore accounts, all of it. Wait, River said, pulling up another news site. Look at this. A new headline scrolled across the screen. Graham Industries cuts all ties with Cooper Industries amid fraud investigation. Otis Graham released a statement, River read. We are shocked by these allegations and are fully cooperating with federal authorities. Our planned merger was contingent on complete transparency, which was clearly not provided. I laughed darkly. Shocked? Please. They knew. They just didn't expect to get caught. The office door opened and Martha hurried in, looking smaller without her housekeeper's uniform. Trinity. I hugged her tight, smelling the familiar lavender perfume she'd worn all my life. Thank you for everything, Martha. Are you okay? Better than your parents, she pulled back, her eyes fierce. Your mother threw a crystal vase at the wall when the SEC arrived. Your father's been locked in his study making calls all morning. Did they suspect you? No, they're too busy suspecting each other. Your mother accused your father of ruining their lives with his reckless schemes. He blamed her obsession with social status. Reagan held up the burner phone. It's your call, Emma. Release everything now, or wait. I thought about my mother's performance at the press conference, playing the worried parent, about my father's attempts to paint me as unstable, about years of manipulation and control. Do it, I said. Release it all. Reagan dialed, spoke briefly, then nodded. It's done. Within an hour, every major news outlet will have the full documentation. What about you? River asked softly. Are you ready to go public? I'd thought about this moment for weeks. Not yet. Let them squirm first. Let them wonder who betrayed them. Martha touched my arm. Your mother has been drinking heavily. Your father's heart condition. Don't, I cut her off. They didn't care about my mental health when they tried to force me into marriage. They don't get to play the victim now. My phone buzzed. Another news alert. The story was breaking. Words like systematic fraud and criminal conspiracy flashed across the screen. Cooper Industries stock trading halted, River read. Federal agents seen entering corporate headquarters. Trinity, Martha said quietly, using my real name. Whatever happens next, remember why you did this. Not for revenge, but for justice. I looked around at my chosen family. River with her unwavering loyalty, Reagan with her fierce protection, Martha with her years of quiet resistance. They'd helped me find not just freedom but strength. I remember, I said, straightening my shoulders, and soon, so will they. Outside the office, customers were glued to their phones, watching my old world crumble in real time. But in here, surrounded by truth and love, I was building something stronger than my parents' empire of lies. The next move would be theirs. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what they might do. I was ready for whatever came next. The letter arrived 3 days after the SEC raid. No return address, just my new name written in my mother's perfect penmanship. How she found me, I didn't want to know. You don't have to open it, River said, watching me turn the envelope over in my hands. Yes, I do. I broke the seal and pulled out a single sheet of expensive stationery. Trinity, your father had a minor heart attack yesterday. The doctors say stress was a factor. I know you're behind the investigation. Whatever we did to hurt you, surely this is punishment enough. Come home. We can fix this as a family. Mother. Minor heart attack, Reagan scoffed, reading over my shoulder. More like panic attack when he realized he couldn't destroy evidence fast enough. My phone rang. An unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Trinity? My father's voice, weaker than I remembered. Don't hang up. I put the phone on speaker. River and Reagan moved closer, protective bookends on either side of me. What do you want? My voice stayed steady, surprising me. The SEC is freezing our assets. Your mother's a mess. Is this what you wanted? To destroy everything I built? Everything you built on lies, I corrected. How many other families were you planning to manipulate? How many other daughters were you going to use as bargaining chips? A long pause. You don't understand business. No, you don't understand, Father. I saw the documents, all of them. The fraud, the cover-ups, the planned merger with the Grahams to hide your illegal dealings. Did you really think I'd never find out? Where are you? His voice hardened, more like the father I remembered. We need to discuss this in person. Your mother's lawyer is probably very busy right now, I cut in. How many years do you think you're looking at, Father? Federal fraud charges aren't like your country club violations. I'm still your father, he snapped. Everything I did was to secure your future. My future? I laughed bitterly. You mean securing your future by selling me to the highest bidder? The Grahams would have what? Hidden your crimes in exchange for your daughter? Was that the real merger plan? Another pause. I heard ice cubes clinking in a glass. Even during a crisis, he wouldn't skip his scotch. Come home, he said finally. We can make this go away. The SEC, the investigation, all of it. We're still powerful enough. No. The word came out sharp and clear. You're not powerful anymore. That's why you're calling. You're desperate. Trinity, please. My mother's voice now. She must have been there all along. We're your parents. We love you. Love? My voice cracked. Love doesn't come with conditions. Love doesn't treat people like property. We can change, she pleaded. Whatever you want. Just call off the investigation. Reagan squeezed my shoulder. River nodded encouragingly. You're right about one thing, I said. I am behind the investigation. I have copies of everything, and tomorrow I'm going to the SEC in person to testify. You wouldn't, Father growled. You'd destroy this family? You destroyed this family long ago. I'm just making sure you can't destroy anyone else's. Think about what you're doing, Mother said. Once you do this, there's no going back. I looked at the people around me. My real family. I don't want to go back. I'm going forward. Trinity! I hung up. The phone immediately rang again. And again. And again. Block the number, Reagan advised. You said what needed to be said. They'll try to stop you, River warned. The SEC testimony. Let them try. I stood up, stronger than I'd felt in months. I'm not afraid anymore. Martha appeared in the doorway. I just saw the news. Your father's company stock is being delisted tomorrow. Good. I picked up my mother's letter and tore it in half. They need to learn that actions have consequences. Are you ready for tomorrow? River asked. Once you testify, your name will be public. Everyone will know. I thought about the scared girl who'd fled in the night 6 months ago. She'd been running away, but tomorrow I'd be running toward something, toward justice, toward truth, toward real freedom. I'm ready, I said. It's time everyone knew the truth about Cooper Industries. About all of it. We'll be right there with you, Reagan promised. Outside, rain fell on Seattle's streets, washing everything clean. Tomorrow would bring cameras, questions, and consequences. But tonight, I was exactly where I needed to be. Surrounded by people who loved me for who I was, not what I could do for them. The phone rang one last time before I blocked the number. Let them worry tonight. Tomorrow they'd learn what real power looked like. The SEC building loomed before me, all glass and steel. Camera crews clustered near the entrance, waiting. My testimony had been kept quiet, but somehow they knew something big was coming. Ready? River adjusted my blazer collar, a far cry from the designer suits my mother used to choose for me. As I'll ever be. I gripped the document folder tighter. Where's Reagan? Already inside with her contact, Martha's watching from the cafe across the street. River checked her phone. Your parents just arrived, back entrance. My stomach lurched. They're here? Of course they are. Their lawyers probably insisted. River squeezed my hand. But they can't stop you, not anymore. We approached the entrance. Cameras swiveled toward us, but no one recognized me yet. 5 more steps. 4. 3. Trinity! My mother's voice cut through the morning air. She stood at the corner of the building, designer sunglasses hiding what I suspected were hungover eyes. Father wasn't with her. Ms. Parker, an SEC official approached. We're ready for you. Mother pushed forward. Trinity, please. Don't do this to us. To your father. His heart. Ms. Cooper, the official interrupted. This is a federal proceeding. Any attempt to interfere with a witness. Witness? Mother's voice rose. She's my daughter. Reporters perked up, cameras turning. The morning news would have their story now. Not anymore, I said clearly, loud enough for the cameras to catch. You lost the right to call me daughter when you tried to sell me to cover up fraud. Gasps and clicking shutters. Mother's face went white. Inside, the hearing room was smaller than I expected. Father sat with his lawyers looking old and grey. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Please state your name for the record, the lead investigator said. I leaned into the microphone. Trinity Cooper, although I now legally go by Emma Parker. And you have documentation regarding Cooper Industries' financial dealings. I opened my folder. Yes, 8 years of records showing systematic fraud, money laundering, and illegal offshore accounts. Father's lawyer stood. We object to this testimony. Ms. Cooper is clearly acting out of personal vendetta The evidence speaks for itself, I cut in, sliding the first document forward. This shows the initial transfer to the Cayman Islands account, dated the same day my father began negotiations with Graham Industries for my arranged marriage to their heir. More documents followed, years of careful records, thanks to Martha's diligence. Father's face grew paler with each revelation. Mother sat in the back, quietly crying. And this final document, I said, pulling out the contract I'd found in Martha's files, shows that the Graham merger wasn't just about business. It was a carefully orchestrated cover-up, with me as the sacrificial lamb. That's enough, Father stood suddenly. This is ridiculous. She's just a bitter child who— Mr. Cooper, the investigator warned, sit down or you'll be removed. I met my father's eyes. I'm not a child anymore, and I'm not your property. Everything I did, he said hoarsely, was for this family. No, everything you did was for yourself, and now you're going to face the consequences. The hearing lasted 3 more hours. I presented evidence, answered questions, watched my parents' empire crumble one document at a time. When it was over, reporters swarmed the steps outside. River appeared at my side, shielding me from the chaos. Trinity! Mother pushed through the crowd. You've ruined us. Are you happy now? I turned to face her, cameras rolling. I didn't ruin anything. Your choices did that. Your lies, your manipulation. We gave you everything, she hissed. No, you took everything. My choices, my freedom, my trust. But not anymore. Father emerged, surrounded by lawyers. He looked defeated, small. The board is demanding my resignation, he said to no one in particular. Good, I replied. Maybe they'll choose someone who understands that people aren't commodities to be traded. Ms. Cooper, reporters called. What motivated you to come forward? I looked at River, thought of Reagan and Martha waiting across the street. The truth motivated me, and the hope that no other daughter will be used the way I was. Mother reached for me one last time. Please, Trinity, we're still family. No, I said quietly. Family doesn't hurt each other like this. Family protects each other, and I finally found people who understand that. I walked away, River beside me, leaving my parents to face the cameras alone. Their lawyers would work all night, trying to save what they could of the company, of their reputations. But I was done. The truth was out. Justice was in motion. Across the street, Martha and Reagan waited with coffee and proud smiles. My real family, my real home. The cameras followed, but I didn't care anymore. Let them see. Let everyone see what happens when you choose truth over power, love over control. Let them see me, finally free. The autumn rain tapped against Reagan's cafe windows as I wiped down the espresso machine. The news played quietly on the TV above the counter. Another story about Cooper Industries' dismantling and sale. Still weird seeing your father in handcuffs? River asked, sliding onto a bar stool. Not as weird as seeing my mother check into rehab, I replied, starting her usual oat milk latte. Martha says she's actually doing the work this time. Speaking of Martha, River nodded toward the door. Martha entered, shaking rain from her umbrella. She looked younger somehow, more relaxed in casual clothes than she ever had in her housekeeper's uniform. The house sold, she announced, settling beside River. Some tech executive bought it. They're turning the grounds into a community garden. I smiled at the irony. My mother's precious manicured lawns transformed into something actually useful for the community. How's the new job? I asked, sliding her a cup of Earl Grey. The women's shelter needs all the help they can get. Turns out I'm good at helping people start over. She gave me a meaningful look. I learned from the best. The bell chimed again. Reagan hurried in, waving a letter. Emma, this just came for you. My new name felt natural now, a choice rather than an escape. I opened the envelope and gasped. What is it? River leaned over. It's from the SEC, I said, scanning the letter. They're using the seized Cooper assets to create a foundation for helping women escape financial abuse and coercive control. And, Reagan prompted, grinning like she already knew. They want me to help run it. Martha clasped her hands together. Oh, Trinity, Emma, that's perfect. Is it? I set the letter down. Part of me still feels guilty. About my father's heart condition, my mother's breakdown. Stop, River said firmly. Their choices led to those consequences. Your choice was to tell the truth. Besides, Reagan added, your mother's doing better in rehab than she ever did drowning her guilt in vodka. Sometimes rock bottom is where people find themselves. The TV caught my attention. Another breaking news alert. My father's face appeared on screen as the anchor spoke. Former CEO Xander Cooper pleaded guilty today to multiple charges of fraud and financial misconduct. In a surprising statement, Cooper expressed remorse not for his financial crimes, but for, quote, sacrificing my daughter's happiness for profit. Cooper faces up to 15 years. I turned down the volume. He actually admitted it. People can surprise you, Martha said softly, even after all these years. The cafe door opened again. A young woman entered, looking nervous and lost, the same way I'd looked that first night in Seattle. Can I help you? I asked. She twisted her engagement ring anxiously. I heard this was a safe place. Someone at the women's shelter gave me this address. Said to ask for Emma. River and Reagan exchanged knowing looks. Martha smiled into her tea. Have a seat, I said, already reaching for a clean mug. Let me guess. Family trying to control your life? She nodded, tears welling up. My father. There's this merger. I'm supposed to marry. I know exactly what you're going through. I placed a hot chocolate in front of her. And I know exactly how to help. As I listened to her story, I thought about choices and consequences, about truth and justice, about how sometimes you have to break something completely before you can build something better. The rain continued outside, but in here it was warm and safe. River typed resources into her phone. Reagan already had her network of contacts ready. Martha offered gentle encouragement born from years of watching and waiting and helping. And me? I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't hiding. I was exactly where I needed to be, helping another daughter find her voice, her strength, her freedom. What's the first step? The young woman asked. I smiled, remembering my own first step into this new life. The first step is choosing yourself. Everything else follows from that. She took a deep breath, slipped off her engagement ring, and placed it on the counter. Then that's what I choose. River squeezed my hand under the counter. Reagan winked. Martha beamed with pride. The TV still played silently above us, showing the end of an empire built on lies. But here, in this cafe, we were building something stronger. A network of truth, of support, of real family. I picked up the SEC letter again, running my fingers over my new name. Emma Parker, advocate and survivor. It wasn't the life my parents had planned for me. It was better. Welcome to your first day of freedom, I told the young woman. Trust me, you're going to love where this journey takes you.